Now, it's my pleasure to present today's presenter, Michel Vandenberg. Michel is Associate Vice President of Marketing for Molecular Spectroscopy at Agilent Technologies. And he has over 30 years of experience in atomic and molecular spectroscopy and has served in various roles in sales, product, marketing, and commercialization management. His design to value initiative has generated transformative results for his business unit, and he'll be sharing some of his experience today. So with that, Michel, welcome.
Thank you, Nick. So I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for inviting me. If you make me presenter, I will show my screen. Thank you.
Let's pass it over.
That should work now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, this difficult word, right? Molecular spectroscopy. Maybe I'll start with that. So yeah, it's actually we'll look at molecules and all sorts of samples using the science of light. So it's the interaction of matter with the light, and the light usually comes from some form of a light source that we put in our instruments, whether it's a laser, a tungsten, or a simple light bulb. It's all possible. So, but that's not the important part of today's webinar. So Nick already presented me. So most of my experience actually in sales and sales management, my whole career in these sorts of scientific instruments, and more recently in commercialization, product development, and the last few years in product marketing. So I'm actually Dutch, based in France. I actually won a number of innovation awards in the company I'm in right now, Agilent Technologies. And my current role is I'm heading up the molecular spectroscopy department, which has a number of sites. There's the biggest one is in Melbourne, Australia. Have a site in Oxford, and then a few members across the world. And to stay sane, I do a bit of woodwork, sports, etc. So because in today's world, it's really important to keep that balanced life work in balance. But today, my talk is about a journey that I started a number of years ago. And I say it's a journey because it's not something that you like a switch that you flip on and off. And hopefully I'll let you know and explain to you why we did this, what we've done, and what the outcome was. And it does require a lot of energy and communication skills. It's really about a change process. A few words about our company, Agilent. So who are we? We actually serve scientists, right, in a number of markets that you can see on the screen here, in different types of applications. Food could be pesticides in vegetables, chemicals could be the quality of fuel, environmental, microplastics, I'll show an example, but anything linked to soil or water or air. And academia and government is essentially research or education, a lot of fundamental research as well. So our commitment is really to help these scientists to advance their solutions. And you've seen some of that. You know, we've all seen the speed of which companies have been able to bring out COVID vaccines, and our instruments have actually played a major role in that whole process. There's clearly a shift to not just deliver the box like in many instruments, in many markets, right? It's not just the instruments as we sold years ago. It's really about workflow change and offering complete solutions, whether it's the sample preparation in our side, the analysis, and the data analysis, actually the data mining. So we're here to allow our customers to be successful in their roles. I don't know, it's all relative, right? It's a relatively large company, doing about above 5 billion in a $58 billion market. The split is probably similar as in other markets, right? About a third in the different regions in the world. And you can see the split in the different markets for us. Pharma and biotechnology is really important particularly for my business as well. But we serve all these markets. Our instruments, I'll show you just a portfolio. That's actually one of our challenges. They're being used in so many different markets. So, and we're doing well. Agilent has been a growth engine ever since we started, which was in 1999, and was actually a spin-off of Hewlett-Packard. So we're listed at the New York stock market under A.com, or the letter A actually. And I can't really talk about forward looking, but the 5.3 billion was last year, which was obviously a difficult year for a lot of companies with only 1% growth, but we still grew. But this year is going to be quite spectacular, and our forecast that was presented in our Q3 results was well above 6 billion this year. And that's public information. All right. My business is a very broad portfolio. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about FTIR or UV-Vis, etc. It's essentially different forms of light, different wavelengths or electromagnetic radiation. It's just to say I have a very broad portfolio, which has a challenge in its own. That's why we target our applications seriously. What do we do with all these boxes? I'll give you two examples. One is it's a hot topic, right? Since a few years, microplastics, any bottle or even cars or clothing. There's a lot of there are a lot of polymers in there. We've designed an instrument that's actually capable to completely automate the analysis. So what you see on the screen, customer has to do some sample preparation, put it on the slide, goes in the instrument, it'll automatically find all the particles, and they're really small, right? We're talking microplastics, so this is micrometers. It'll then go to each particle, take a picture, a visual image, do the analysis, and then we'll automatically identify which polymer it is, and then the customer gets a summary of it in terms of what the particle size is, how many, etc. So yeah, this is quite a popular instrument today in research groups that are on their way to define regulation around the microplastics. Another example of our products is in hazardous material analysis. So this is an image of a customs organization in Asia, where they seized a huge amount of drug, and they used our instruments actually to find the drugs because it was hidden in olive oil. So if the technology allows me, I will show you now a video of how these instruments are being used. Should come up in a minute on the screen. So this is an instrument that's being used by military, police, hazmat, etc. And in this particular scenario, they've found a clandestine laboratory, and you never know what you find there, right? So, and this instrument has a certain technology that can look through material using lasers, and which comes in handy with very dangerous drugs that are out there. You've probably heard about fentanyl. I talked to police officers in the past. They would put their finger on it, on white powder, and maybe smell it, or even put it on their tongue. If you do that today, you don't live very long. So it really keeps the operator safe, and keeps us safe by helping them finding all these hazardous materials. That is used for explosives or materials that are being used to create explosives, as well as all forms of drugs. And when they do these analysis, it's always urgent, right? So we have a reach back service. If there are questions about the scan or the information that's been given by the instrument, they can quickly contact one of our specialists, and they'll identify the material quickly together. So yeah, I think this is a cool example. We go back to my screen. So that about what we do. Now about what I call design to value. That's how I started it. So when I got into this business, we had a particular challenge. You've seen our profitability in Agilent. So that is the financial objective of any division in our industry, and we were far from those numbers. So I showed you our portfolio. We're a relatively small business. I can't give you a number. We don't give specific divisions numbers, but in the $6 billion, it is relatively small. And we also had a number of platforms that were relatively old, so with low margins, etc. So something needed to happen. And we have excellent engineers, and they can make anything, but it's not about the technicality, right? It's what we do for customers. So when I looked at our our business, it was clear that if we do effort to reduce our product costs, so 1% reduction of our product cost creates about a 3% operating profit. Growing your business by 1% gives you 5% roughly in our model. But the biggest leverage has always been, as far as I'm in this industry, is get better pricing, right? The better achieved the price. 1% change is usually somewhere around 8 to 12% change in operating profit. So that's what I wanted to work on by implementing a structural approach to product development. So during the NPI project, so new product developments, and that way creating well differentiated and products that add value to our customers and to us. And then the second phase was, once you have those products, it's really helped the sales force to communicate and sell on value and not on specifications or features as they did in the past. So I found LeveragePoint as I thought a good tool to help us achieving those objectives. And this is what my story is about, how I implemented it and what it resulted in. So I actually started a few years ago with first convincing the senior management that this would be a good idea and that they had to invest a little bit of money and my time in it, etc. And I found a few guys that were going to help me. Because you really need some people in your organization that believe in the process, in the methodology, and in your thinking about applying this. So that was a pilot on a particular project that we did. It was very successful. So I got approval to invest not just in the tool of LeveragePoint, but really in changing the process and embedding it in our product life cycle. So I'll show you this here. So this is the Agilent product life cycle. I guess it's like any stage gate process in other companies, where at different stages there's a checkpoint where our general manager, VP, has to make a decision whether or not he's continued to invest millions in new product development. So this already existed, those different stages with the different checkpoints, but not really as structural the value development. So at each stage, I defined what needed to be done around value, understanding of value and creating value. So in the investigation stage, you need to be able to quantify value. And as you could move on in the product life cycle, validating that whole hypothesis a lot more and talking to customers, of course, to sales engineers. And then you can build that also in your whole marketing message and actually start selling after training the sales engineers, etc. So as you can see, I put 6 months pilot, and then it took me maybe a bit longer than 18 months because it's not just implementing this, but also the new product development, which is usually a number of years. And but I saw a change also in the thinking of the product managers, and I got the really important was the support from my senior management that our VP said, if you don't have a value model at these checkpoints, then we're just not going to move on. So that made my life a bit easier in the change process, right? And it requires a lot of energy. As I said, you need to support the people. I got really good support from LeveragePoint as well to initially develop those value models using the tool, training my guys, etc. And yeah, I think it was a good process. Now, what did that result in? And remember, this phase is only about implementing the value in your product development and essentially in your products. But what we achieved was making sure that every product that we design has this value message there, that there's a clear differentiation. What it also resulted in, as you can see in the second bullet point here, is actually we canceled the project. Whereas I'm absolutely sure in the past, because we would have continued, right? But having this rigorous look at how much value we actually create for customers, and can we monetize it? Because if you cannot monetize it, I believe there is no value. And so we could monetize a bit of value, but it just didn't fit with pricing and other suppliers and the cost of the product that we were developing. So we canned the project, and we probably saved well, huge amount of money for Agilent and a big disappointment in our field and in our own organization. Don't know if you heard about challenger marketing, but I thought that you know, the whole value development is really well aligned with the challenger concept that we're using in all of our marketing campaigns, because it helps creating this consistent message and much more focused on value or pain points solving, rather than just our specifications. A lot of our salespeople are actually really technical. I'm a physician by training, and a lot of our sales engineers are as well. They're chemists or they're scientists, right? So it's really important to drive them away from these specifications discussions. Of course, creating value for customers, and it actually showed in a different way. Some of the products that we launched in the last few years, actually all of them won awards. The biggest one was the R&D 100. It's kind of the Oscar in our industry. You're chosen by a panel of independent people, so that was quite a nice result for the whole team, for the R&D people, the marketing, product marketing, etc. So that was nice. And personally, Agilent has the frequency is not that stable, but let's say every 2 years there's a contest, an internal contest around innovation. There are 2 categories. One is for new products, and the second one for process improvement. And that's where I won the group award for with design to value. And you can see it here. I got the award and a nice dinner with the C staff. And yeah, you Americans really know how to do those kind of events. So it was quite nice. Good recognition. And it also resulted in when you do those things, other people talking to me and actually implementing this methodology in other divisions in the company. So as part of the submission on the Agilent competition for innovation, I had to make a video. And the only instruction was it shouldn't be longer than 40 seconds. And obviously there has to be a link with your project. So if the technology doesn't load. Hi guys, my name is Michel. I wanted to show you something that's part of my innovation. Not really, in this case, scientific instrument, but it's a tool that's very important in the country that I live in. So this one is €1 and it's used to bottle. Well, it works, it does the job. But now let's take the real one. 35 times more expensive. And you'll see. Okay, which one's the better experience? Which one really creates value? All right, so this was really a short video to show the audience the principle of design to value, right? You buy a cheap corkscrew, you ruin your shirt, you ruin the wine, and if you buy a good one, well, you don't do that, of course, so you save a lot of money, and most importantly, you don't spill any expensive wine. So that's why I say price is what you pay, but value is what you get. And I don't have the corkscrew. I still have the corkscrew, but it's not in my office. Better not to. All right, I'll go back to my my presentation. Yep, that should work. All right, so that was really the part of implementing design, what I call design to value, using the LeveragePoint tool, because that tool really helps a structural approach to value development. But then the communication part, because you first have to create products that actually add value before you can start communicating it. Not that our older products don't have value, but it's easier with new products with that whole philosophy built in. Now, what was really important when you start talking to the sales teams and implement a tool like this is that you're asking a lot of them, right? They all think that they're the best sales engineers in the world, with respect. But particularly the products that we make, and it's not about selling the product. It is really selling a philosophy, a workflow change, which creates a business outcome to our customers. It has nothing to do with just the technology. Now, I need to explain a little bit about the product. So the product is called VIA. You can see it on the screen here. I actually made one of wood for my R&D colleagues that I'm going to give actually next week, because I'll first time travel since 2 years. So this product is used in the pharmaceutical industry to what we call raw material identification. So this is pictures taken in a warehouse of a manufacturing site for pharma, where they get these pallets full of bags. And what the instrument does, it actually validates that what's written on the bag is actually in there, and they have to do that. The legislation depends on the country, but it's a really important process or analysis. Usually what they do is they have to open a bag, take a sample, bring it to the lab, dissolve it, and then put it in one or the other analytical instrument. Via using the same technology that I showed in the video for hazmat, it can actually look through the packaging, not every packaging, but a lot of them, and actually detect at relatively low levels what's in there. So it avoids, all the things that people had to do in the past, like I just mentioned. So picking the right product is really important. It makes it easier to motivate salespeople to use your value tool, right? Then the biggest part of what I'm actually going to show you later in the value model is really the logic behind it. That's where it takes a lot of time. So I'm using the the LeveragePoint tool to communicate that value, but it's all based on the logic. So for example, in this situation for a customer, it means how many samples they use, how long it would normally take, what kind of detection levels they want to achieve, how long the analysis takes in the lab, how quickly it actually goes when you do it this way, how much inventory do you have, etc. So all of that logic goes in the tool, and then it's really important that you validate that with customers. So we usually, when we develop our products, we have a consortium of customers that have access to beta units, and part of that preparation is also around the value for these customers, right? And then the same, you need to validate it with a few experienced salespeople. Now, I made a few mistakes in this process. I didn't work with the right kind of salespeople initially in the past. So we actually, in our organization, we have enterprise salespeople. So these are guys that are quite experienced, sell higher up in the organizations, and those are really important to work with. So they become successful using the technology, become, as I mentioned on the slide, an ambassador, and then it becomes actually much easier to spread this out to the other sales engineers that you sell the same technology. So it's the same argument as I want a consistent approach to value development, whether a product manager is experienced or just came in the organization, and the same thing counts for account managers in our organization. And then once you get there, of course, it's really important to keep supporting the sales teams, the value model, adapt it when you get feedback, and that's why it's really important to use this tool and not just an Excel sheet that you will have all sorts of different versions flying around. There's only one version of the truth of this, and then of course, as always, is share success. Now, I thought what I do now is I'll show you the tool. This is only an image of it. Let me just switch to the LeveragePoint in here. Now they just changed it. I think it's a really good, they changed the layout. You don't actually even see anymore, it's LeveragePoint. It almost looks like a PowerPoint presentation, but it's not. There's a lot of stuff behind it. I'll take you through, just looking at the time. Yeah, I think we're okay. So this is the start of showing that value model and the value communication, where you show that per horizon, which in this case is 3 years, a customer, we would create about $180,000 of value based on an average scenario where they have 125 batches, the current value of their raw materials that's in inventory, etc. So these are the most important variables that we put on this first slide, but there are many more. The whole point is, and usually the customer's reaction is, wow, I don't believe that, right? How'd you get there? So, and that's the next step, is where you start discussing, okay, we made a few assumptions that you currently use a certain technology, but you don't want to invest. But if you invest in our product via, and then you want to look over 3 years, that's what we build the model on. For me, it's really important that the model becomes credible. So we've looked at also the downsides of our investment or buying our product, because there's a whole workflow change behind it that costs time and money. So these are a number of variables that, yeah, for me are logical for that customer in that situation. The customer will completely understand this. If you talk to the right level, in this case, it's also important that our salespeople don't talk to the lab operator, but they have to probably, in this case, talk to the guy who manages the warehouse, right? So he'll understand all those things, and probably a lab manager as well. So there are a number of variables here. One important one is percentage of batches that are source amenable. Source is the technology that is in this VIA instrument that allows you to look through a packaging. That doesn't work for all materials. So some containers are just too opaque or too thick for the laser to go through and come back. So in this case, we said 60%, but it's really depending on the customer type of samples, types of containers. But that's really important, right? Because we can modify that. And if it's only 10%, then, well, he shouldn't, or the customer shouldn't invest in this product. If it's 100%, probably makes sense. And somewhere in between, then it depends on all the other variables. Other assumptions are more around cost, so salaries of different types of employees, inventory turns, etc. Pretty straightforward. And then behind, we have all the mathematical formulas, which are not complex, but that's where all the thinking goes in. And then we summarize this into 3 what we call value drivers. So operating savings, time savings, and inventory. And we take the customers through those with a number of variables, right? So we flip through the first, then the analyst time savings, and then inventory savings. Then the last few slides or representations of the value model, this is what we call the waterfall. So which shows the additional value that we create, the total economical value, the cost, the investment for the company. Now, this product sells for, let's say, $80,000. So there's another $50,000 in terms of investment that comes on top of it for the customer to invest in workflow changes, salaries, etc., to make this all happen. A lot of that is just once. And then you'll see that in the return on investment over time. Once you have this implemented, you're making every year you're saving a lot of money, right? So there are different ways to present this. This is a bit of a higher level summary. So cost of what they do right now, the cost of our solution, so the additional value over this horizon that we can modify. We can show per year, we can show it per batch, per sample, whatever the customer wants to see. And then as a summary, what the return on investment is. In this case, it's 24 months. And just to show you, sorry, if I change one of these parameters, a really important one, I think it was in here. No, assumptions 2. Yeah, so number of batches, that's a pretty obvious one, right? The more samples you have, the more time and money you save in inventory. So let's make this 180. So it was 24 months. If I now go to the multi-year, it drops back to 17 months. So and usually in the discussion with the customer, we work on all these parameters because they're really different for our customers. Right. Let me go back to my deck. So outcomes of the second phase, which is where we are now, right? So we managed to, it really helped us to transform our portfolio. We haven't changed our whole portfolio, but the number of key products that we did. And again, I can't give you absolute numbers, but I can guarantee you that our gross margin has improved a big time, double digits. So, but other things are really important, right? It really drives behavior of sales engineers in a very different way. So away from these specifications, I actually don't give them specifications anymore, and they just start screaming. And then in the end, we'll have to. But sometimes in public tenders, they need specifications. But it's not how we sell our products, right? It's really focused on the business impact. It gives them a better negotiation position. If you propose a customer that amount of value, you know, why a few percent discount don't make any difference anymore. It's really about what we can do to help the customer to make those savings and get a better workflow. So it did result in higher average selling prices. We actually win more deals as well using the tool and with the new products, and more importantly, much faster. So via this new product, this doesn't replace an older version. It's an additional to the portfolio. So we have another product there as well. But Via sells about the selling process about 2 months faster than the previous product. So it's also more attractive for a sales engineer to work on these deals, right? And a really important, it really differentiates our company. We have totally different discussions with customers, and they sometimes find out things about their own process that they didn't think about. And that's really nice to have those discussions with customers. And then, as I mentioned before, other divisions now in Agilent are using the same methodology. And for us, I already mentioned we transformed our portfolio. We're on track to better performance. I can show you without the numbers. So this is our volume over the last few years. This was last year, fiscal 20. We're in the last week actually of this fiscal year. We will be there, absolutely. We'll have a very strong year. So even if you compare to previous years, we're growing strongly. Now the red part is what I obsoleted. So we don't sell these anymore. There's a little lag here in the last year. But this is significant, right? It was about 18–90% of our business that I removed. So it's a huge impact. Very frustrating for the field, but I knew with the right process behind it, we would get there. So, and you see that, right? The MPIs started to do well already last year, 2 years ago. We have more this last year, and this year it becomes even a bigger impact. So while not shrinking the other part of the business, so that's really important. And I have no doubt that we'll achieve those numbers next year. So it works. And I already mentioned we're not the biggest division in big Agilent, but especially in the groups that we have, strategic account managers that work with companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and you name it, they really like us now because we have these very innovative products. We give them the right tools to have totally different business discussions with senior levels in those organizations. So they appreciate that. And personally, it's not my goal, and I really don't like that title actually, but I did get a promotion. Maybe it helped. Another thing, probably coincidence, maybe this was one of our peer companies that are active in this business that dressed a buzzard who came after me right after we got all this success and actually stole my cap here and when I was running in the forest. Amazing. So, where are we with time? No, we're okay. So yeah, this is my last slide. Like I said before, it's a journey, right? This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to have a lot of energy. There'll be disappointments, but if you make the right choices from the start, you get the support. I think this is really absolutely worth the process to embark on. But it's really important you choose the right product, the right people to work with, etc., to make this happen. And when I was preparing for this webinar in our weekly internal company, there's always a quote of note, and it happened to be one from Thomas Edison. Said, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. And people that know me know that I will never give up, but I was close. Sometimes I thought this is not going to work, right? It's too much effort. But if you have build that team around you, it really makes life so much easier. And if you believe in it, you'll get there. So, and I absolutely believe in this. If you want to reach out to me and get some other advice or maybe ask a question, I'd be happy to talk to you. So in summary, I absolutely believe this is a great methodology. So it's not just a tool, right? The tool was only a tool, but it's what you put behind it to make this actually work, and it absolutely worked quite nicely for us. Nick, I think it's back to you. Time for questions.
Sounds good. And thank you, Michel, for sharing all of your insights. I'm going to make myself presenter and show my screen. So we've had a few questions come in during the webinar, and there's still time to enter questions. So if you have any for Michel, please enter it on the right-hand side of your screen. And a quick reminder, just to complete the survey before you when you leave the webinar today, you'll be entered to win a copy of Dollarizing Differentiation Value, and you'll be able to see, if you want to connect with Michel or see how the LeveragePoint platform or value as writ large might work in your organization. We'd be one of us, either on the LeveragePoint side or Michel's side, would be happy to speak with you. So, looking through the questions, you ready to roll?
Yeah, sure.
Let's try this one. So we had a question on the no-go decision from the product and development. Is there any way that you know of to quantify the impact of deciding not to bring a product to market using customer value?
I did. I can't give you the exact number, but I can. Multiple millions. Yeah, it's relatively easy, right? We know exactly how much we would have spent going forward with that product development. Would have been another few years, and then of course the calculation of what Agilent expects from us in terms of operating margin and growth, etc. And then the delta that I think we compared to what we planned in the original project proposal, and then when we actually found out, when we went through this exercise of value, where we actually found we didn't have enough value and we couldn't sell the product at the price we thought we couldn't sell the product at the price we were expecting compared to the cost of the product. So yeah, you can calculate that, absolutely.
Great.
Just to complement that, I think what I've always said in that phase is, when you go through this process, you actually find out and you know what you don't know. Because you don't know. In some cases, I just couldn't figure out what the value was for the customer, and we assumed that in the past. But when you try to make those calculations, you really got to know. So, and we couldn't figure it out.
No, and that's something we talk about a lot here at LeveragePoint, is the power of quantifying customer value can help make better decision making. So that's a great example of that. So I've got one, looks like this is about the price impact graph earlier in the presentation. So in practice, how do I convince my colleagues, in parentheses sales, could have predicted that one, that the customers will tolerate this? And I'm assuming that they're referring to a price increase or a price, laying on the price layer.
Yeah.
So how would you communicate that internally?
Well, we do that, of course, in our sales trainings, and I can tell you that when we launched this product, the VIA, I told you a number, let's say around $80,000 that we sell this product for, plus or minus 10, depending on the accessory, etc. There are solutions out there, particularly Chinese manufacturers or others, that are half that price, right? So why would a customer spend twice the amount of money and buy our product? And that's where this whole value model comes into place, because we can show them with our proprietary technology that looks through packaging how much money they actually save. So whether the instrument is 40 or 80 after 2 years, it doesn't matter anymore, right? They're really saving a lot of money. So as I said, our sales engineers are very technical. They first will ask you about, okay, what is the spectrometer that you have in there, and how much light output, and it doesn't matter. So what we give them is application notes and show them this actually works, typical scenarios with customers that we work with in the consortium. And then what's really powerful is actually have a customer participate in those sales sessions, in the sales trainings prior to launch. So that was a really good moment.
That makes a lot of sense. I've got another one coming in about it's probably an aha moment, but can you describe like if you've ever had like an aha moment where you realize this clicked, so where this value message suddenly made sense, whether it's, I guess this could be for a customer or internally?
Yeah, I can think of that moment because it's linked to the previous question, right? So that was when we selected those more enterprise salespeople, and we had them trained, and we launched this product about 1.5 years ago. It's been very successful, by the way. I got a call from one of the account managers, said, "Hey, can we get, my customer wants to have access to the tool because she wants to present her business case to her management to invest in this product." And she thought it was perfect to use the LeveragePoint tool for it. So, and that to me was, yeah, wow. If customers are asking me for this, then yeah, we must be doing something right. So, called an aha
Yeah, it's
moment.
always a good sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would certainly qualify as one in my definition.
Yeah. And by the
so
way,
I got a question
thanks.
about.
Sorry, thanks. You guys did give her access, and we did get the order. So.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good to hear. We're always happy to help help our customers. So I've got one on scaling the salespeople. So in terms of you mentioned picking the right salesperson and the right salespeople to at least do the initial pilot. Do you have any advice on rolling it out organization wide or team wide to the broader sales org?
Well, I can only think about my own experience and the mistakes that I made. So don't roll this out immediately globally, right? My responsibility is global, but I usually start with Western Europe and the US, because I find those sales teams are more used to use the that methodology of selling on value and having business discussions. It's coming in other regions as well, because when you start there, it's easier to adopt. You create success, and then you can actually use that success to communicate that in other areas. And one of the mistakes I made initially, for some of our products, using this tool is a bit too much, because let's say Avaya sells in the average sales cycle is probably let's say between 4 and 8 months, because the customer will look at what they're looking for, what they need, have discussions with different suppliers. They'll probably run some tests, need to get the investment approved, etc. So, but there are also solutions that we sell that go a lot faster, and that's where sometimes you think it would be really beneficial, but the sales engineers don't want to go into that kind of detail with those customers. So pick the right product. Yeah. And this one was really, so the other part is where you have a strong, or let's say a significant different price point versus other solutions that are in the market. You have to have something like this. Otherwise it becomes just discounting.
Yep, and that's something that it might happen. You might see it in sales orgs, but it's as you saw in the earlier slide, it can really be detrimental to the bottom line. So makes a lot of sense. I think we have time for one more. So what's the difference between doing this versus spreadsheets? I'm sure there's a lot of people out here there that try to quantify value in spreadsheet form, and for many folks that's an introduction.
Well, I think I already mentioned something around this in my presentation, which is there's only one version of the truth. I think the nice thing is that while an account manager can change the variables in the discussion with the customer, he cannot change or she cannot change the logic. And we put a lot of effort in there. We know it works. So that's one example or benefit. The other part is using the tool. I find also, even though it's web-based, I mean, we have a lot of discussions like we do now, right? Virtual. So the tool also allows you to export the data in different formats, whether it's a summary in a PowerPoint or Excel, which is then the value proposition that is, after discussion, modified to mimic actually the exact situation at the customer. So it also gives the customer then a tool to have that discussion with their management to defend their request for investment. So and you won't get that with an Excel sheet. And then I think the other advantage I see with the LeveragePoint tool over Excel's is some of these value drivers are similar between different products. So once you have that logic for example, let's take the warehouse, right? And you have a similar technology that does slightly different things, but you have also the similar logic behind it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, just copy those value drivers in the new solution. So you don't lose that experience over years.
I think we hear that from a lot of our customers, and I think that that makes a lot of sense. So really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and the impact that it's really about that customer value has had in your business unit. So before we go, I'd like to remind everyone to pre-register for next month's webinar in the exit survey. We're going to be joined by Ulysses Sparandio, and he'll be sharing his experience with value selling in the commercialization process with a real big focus on oil and gas, specialty chemicals, and manufacturing. So this is for everybody, but especially if you are in those industries, this will be a really great session to attend. That's going to be on December 14th, and that will be the final webinar of this year's series. So make sure you pre-register in the survey. And so that'll be it for us today. I want to thank Michel for joining us and sharing his experience and insight. And a special thank you from everyone here at LeveragePoint. Have a wonderful rest of your week and take care.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining and for listening. Have a good day.
Thank you.